Welcome to American BBQ'ers. Today, we have a special episode that I'm going to do. This meal that I'm cooking today will not be for myself or my family. This meal is going to a family in my community that just experienced a fire in their home. So to get one less thing off their mind, today I'm going to be making dinner for them. I've got 2 racks of St. Louis style ribs. I personally, when doing ribs, I prefer the scoring method on the back. And I know I'm going to get a lot of comments about you don't score it. Pull the skin off the back of the rib. I really don't see much of a difference between the scoring method or pulling the skin off the back of the ribs. Scoring it, if you do it in a small diamond shaped pattern, it shrinks to the point that you don't notice it at all. So I've got these 2 ribs scored. This one particular rib I had to trim a little bit. They didn't trim it very well. Had a huge large flap hanging on it, as well as a big hunk of fat. I went ahead and I trimmed that off. So before you do anything, check your ribs, make sure you've got all the excess that's not needed taken off. Today I'm trying a rub by Blend. It's Kansas City Smoker. It's a barbecue rub. When you rub your ribs, be liberal, okay? You don't want to skimp. You're going to have some of that seasoning fall off during cooking and handling. Get it all over here. Score or season both sides of your ribs. And I like to season at least a couple hours before cooking. If you have time to do it the night before, that's going to be the best. That ran out right there. The night before is best. If you can't do it the night before, definitely a couple hours before you go to cook them. You want that rub to have a chance to penetrate, get into the meat. You'll end up with a tastier product at that point. You also get a little better flavor or color on your ribs. And I don't like that top. They changed it. Okay. Now that we got a nice, we're working on a nice coat here. I've got my pellet grill. I've got it set to 250. It's been preheating right now for a little bit. I'm going to give these ribs probably about a good half hour before I throw them on the grill. Got up a little later and got moving a little later than I should have to let these ribs have a chance to sit for a couple hours. Okay. I like to do my ribs at 250 degrees. I do kind of a modified 3-2-1 method. If you don't know what a 3-2-1 method is, it's basically you cook your ribs for 3 hours on the grill. You pull them off. You wrap them in aluminum foil. Put them back on for 2 hours. Take them off after that. Take the aluminum foil off. Do a light basting of barbecue sauce. Put them back on for the last hour. So they cook for 3-2-1. I personally like to do a 2-1-1 method. 3-2-1 tends to give you a more fall off the bone rib where you can almost take the bone and pull out of the meat. For me, that rib is overcooked. For a lot of people, they're going to love that. I like to do more of a competition style rib, so I don't want the bone and the meat to just separate with ease, not like a pork butt when you pull the blade bone out where it just pulls right out. Not looking for that for ribs. I look for a competition bite, meaning when you cut your ribs, the meat stays on the bone and you take your bite. You'll end up with a competition bite with a perfect teeth mark, that U-shaped teeth mark on your rib, and when you pull, it pulls away clean from the bone, only in the spot that you took a bite. If your rib pulls clean all the way down the side, per competition, that is overcooked. So I like that little bit of texture, that little bit of hold onto the bone when I eat my rib. I don't want to feel like I can just suck it up through a straw because it's so mushy and soft. So I'm going to do a 2-2-1 method on these ribs. Let these sit, let my grill have a chance to stabilize, and when we come back, we're going to put these on the grill, and we're going to work on some baked beans in the next segment. We're going to throw those on the grill as well to have those smoke, get some of that nice oak flavor that I'm using today. Okay, we're going to talk baked beans now. I personally like the Bush's original baked beans. That's what I have here. Put them in a bowl. Yeah, I've got two 28-ounce cans of the beans. Get a spatula here. Make sure we get it all out. Okay. And to this, we're going to chop up some onions. Going here. Now these onions, when you let it slow cook, are going to melt down to where you may not even notice them in the beans. Give it a stir here. To this, I also like to add a little bit of red pepper. It helps give it a little more color. And again, just do kind of a big rough chop on your pepper. I'm going to do one more like that. Give it a little rustic. Okay. Got it all there. Okay, and just take a look at it. You can kind of tell if the mixture has enough. I mean, you don't want to overpower it with a ton of onions and a ton of the bell pepper. From here, I'm going to add a little brown sugar, make it a little sweeter. We're probably for two 28-ounce cans of the beans, we're probably looking at 1/3 of a cup of brown sugar. Okay, we're going to add salt and pepper to taste. Give this a nice stir. And then I like to use Casey Masterpiece Original or Bullseye Original barbecue sauce. I like that thick molasses type barbecue sauce, and these right here are pretty dang close to each other. So that's what I use. Just add some in there, just get that nice molasses flavor going on in your beans. By all means, if you've got a great recipe from scratch, use that. This right here, just one of my favorite ways of doing it without having to soak the beans and cook them and all that extra that you have to do for making it from scratch. So I kind of use the bushes and then doctor it up a little bit. Okay, from here, you're just going to want to taste it. See if you need to add any more brown sugar or salt and pepper or barbecue sauce. Add a little more of the barbecue sauce. Give it a stir. Should be good. Now you want to taste it before this next part. As the next part, we're going to add some bacon. So you don't want to taste it after you've mixed in a bunch of raw bacon. For today, I'm going to take 4 strips of bacon. And these will shrink when they cook. Okay. So you want to cut it about a 1/2 inch strips. Sharp knife will help you get through this bacon nice and easy. Some bacon you still may have a little trouble. At that point, take your bacon, throw it in the freezer to get it to harden up, and it will cut a lot nicer at that point. Okay, we're just going to kind of break up the bacon here. Get them all in the bowl. Don't want any to stick together and end up with a clump going on. So this definitely takes a little bit of time, and a little bit of dirty fingers happen at this junction. Okay. After we get all the bacon into the bowl, just going to give it a stir. Okay. Get a couple more in here. Like so. And then when it comes to cooking your beans, I like to throw them on the grill with whatever else I'm cooking. I'm going to get that nice flavor from your wood. I'm using oak. Got them all nice and stirred. Transfer them to a pan. I prefer to use these little disposable aluminum pans. That way I'm not messing up one of my good baking pans in the house with turning it gold from the smoke. This way I can just throw it away when I'm all done. Now with the ribs, being we're cooking at 250 degrees, these beans are actually going to need to cook for a while. So I'm going to put them on right as soon as I pull the ribs to put them in a wrap. That's when these are going to go on, and they're going to stay on there for the duration of the cook for the ribs. So they're going to be on there about a good 3 hours, maybe closer to 3.5 hours to cook down, get nice and hot, and absorb as much smoke as we can in it, just to add some more flavor to our beans. So we got that all done. Next thing, we are about half an hour into our cook on the ribs. So in a couple hours, pull those ribs, beans will go on, and we'll see you then. Okay, it's been about 2 hours. So now we're going to wrap. For our wrap, I take some brown sugar. Just kind of spread it out in the middle here. It's going to help caramelize that outside. Get a little sweet going with our ribs that have that slightly spicy rub. Get that laid down. And I'm going to take some pads of butter. Got some pre-cut here. Just kind of set them on out and around like that. And we're going to take our first rib, plop it down like that. And then just going to take a little bit more brown sugar. I'm not going to do butter on this side. Just kind of lightly sprinkle it right there. Get a little caramelized action on that back side of the rib. It's a good idea to get set up before you come to do this, like how I did here. And fold our ends up. Set like that. And just work it down toward your rib. Fold your sides in. Okay. Let me start over with the second one. See, I already got my aluminum foil out. I was prepared. A little more brown sugar action going on right there. Okay. Take our rest of our butter here. This one's set. Again, a little more brown sugar, just kind of sprinkle it right there. Okay. Wrap this one up as well. And then now, when you go back to the grill with your ribs, you want to set them butter and sugar side down. Okay? You want kind of that meat to sit in that sweet buttery mixture while it's on the grill. Okay? So I've got my baked beans already on the grill. I did that a little earlier, getting a little jump start on them. And in here, I'm also going to take over. I've got some green beans with onions, red pepper, fresh cooked bacon, and I did take some of the rendered bacon fat and pour it in with it. When I get about 20 minutes before I'm ready to take it over, I'm going to throw this in a 350 degree oven to let it get nice and hot. We have our green beans, got our ribs, take those back out. These are going to go back on the grill, again 250 degrees for about 1 hour. Then we're going to take them off, and I'll see you when that time comes. Okay, at this point you do need to start being a little careful. Wrapping it in the tin foil makes the ribs start to get tender. Okay, so you don't want to manhandle them, be really rough with them. They'll actually want to start to pull apart if you're not careful. Okay, so from here I have some barbecue sauce. This barbecue sauce is a mixture of the KC Masterpiece barbecue sauce. I use about 2 cups of the KC Masterpiece. To that, I add roughly 3/4 cups of orange blossom honey, and I add about 1/3 cup of brown sugar, and bring that to just a slight simmer just to make sure everything has a chance to melt inside of each other. It is going to be a sweeter barbecue sauce, but that sweeter barbecue sauce is going to pair well with our spicy rub that is on your ribs. For me, the perfect tasting rib is that first bite. You get that nice sweet sensation, and then it follows up right towards the end with a nice bit of spice. Okay, so we're going to do a light basting on the bone side first. Then from here, being gentle, I'm going to flip these over like so. Again, trying to be careful because we don't want to disturb the bones at all. Then we're going to give another light coat of sauce on the top side. Now, a lot of people like to slather their ribs with a ton of sauce. I'm not one of those people. I'd rather have the dry rub do most of the standing out when it comes to my ribs. So I just do a thin layer just to add a little something. That doesn't mean you can't add however much sauce you want, but I follow the old adage, you can always add more. So if you're cooking for a crowd and you like to slather it real thick with sauce, I probably wouldn't. I'd do a nice thin layer, cook it as is with a thin layer, and then you can always add more sauce to your liking. And that's the same goes with anybody else. Okay, everybody has their preferred barbecue sauce, their sauce thickness. Everybody's different. With this thin layer, you're going to allow everybody to make their rib the way they want it, and you're going to end up with more satisfied people at that point. Okay, we're nice and evenly coated with a thin layer all the way around. From here, we're going to go back on the grill for 1 more hour. We want this this barbecue sauce to caramelize on the outside. From this point, we're going to go in bone side down. So the only time we actually went meat side down was while it was wrapped. Okay. Okay. Here's our ribs. Finished product here. They've did a modified 3-2-1 method. I actually ended up going about 2.5, 1 and 1 when doing this. If you'll notice, I did not use a temperature probe through any of this. You do it all by feel. You can see we have bone exposure going on our ribs now, right here. And also, get under here. Okay, it's not falling apart, but it's nice and limp. Okay, now, the worst thing anybody can do with their ribs or any piece of meat is cutting it prematurely. You're going to want to let it sit and rest. And I know cutting into that rib or that brisket and squeezing it and showing all the juice and how juicy that piece of meat is, I mean, that's makes for good filming or a good picture. However, if you do that, you're going to lose all your moisture in your meat, and you're going to end up with a dry piece of meat. So you want it to rest. I like my ribs to rest for at least 1 hour before cutting into. Pork butt, I like at least 2 hours. Brisket, realistically, I want 3 to 4 hours before I cut into it. So these ribs, we're actually going to sit, we're about 3 o'clock now, they're going to sit for a good solid hour before I even touch them from here on out. So what I'm going to do, take some aluminum foil, just to get them covered, to protect them. Okay. And we're going to let them rest. Just sit here and do their thing. Let all those juices that we got worked up while cooking, let them start to settle and redistribute back through the rib. Premature cutting will have a dry rib. Okay. Okay, we're back. Right here is our finished product. They've rested for about 1 hour right now. So, what I'm going to do, take our rib. I'm going to start slicing them. And that slice is so easy. There we go. Set that aside. I'm going to continue slicing the rest of these. In the meantime, feel free to head on over to Z-Grills Nation Facebook group. Request to join. If you don't have a pellet grill, head on over to zgrillsalescenter.com and order your pellet grill today.